And we are back on Sportsman Radio. I'm your host, Chris Shanfeld, and I am now joined by former All-Pro offensive tackle for the Houston Oilers and Tennessee Titans, Brad Hopkins. Thanks for joining me on the show tonight, Brad. How's it going?
Good, Chris. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. And I want to start this interview off by talking a little bit about your high school days. I see you attended Moline High School, located in Moline, Illinois. I'm here from Illinois, in a town called Richton Park. I Googled it. It's about 2 hours away from Moline, so pretty far. I seen you played football and basketball, and as we know, you could play football. You could play football pretty good. And I got to ask you, how was your basketball game back in those days, playing with now former NBA first-round draft pick in A.C. Earl?
Actually, Chris, I was using football as a conditioning tool. Everything that I envisioned in my head was geared towards basketball. I thought that was something that I was going to be more noted for. But, as the opportunity would have it, football just ended up, really kind of taking the lead just because of, I think, my size at the time. I was a little more bulky than your traditional basketball player. And I think at the time there were a lot of tight end coaches that were salivating at possibly get me on a football field. So they were able to convince me that maybe that was the route for me to go, and I accepted a scholarship to Illinois to play football, and kind of took off from there.
Yeah, you said you went to the University of Illinois. What made you decide to attend U of I?
Chris, I've always been an Illinois fan. Growing up in Moline, Illinois, I've been a huge Illinois fan. We are backed up to the Mississippi River, which means on the other side there are huge Iowa Hawkeye fans, and I made sure that I stood my ground and let everybody know that even though I was 3 hours away from Champaign and only 45 minutes from the University of Iowa campus, that I was definitely an Illinois fan. So it was kind of a no-brainer for me, really, to kind of join the university. When I found out that Mike White, who was the coach at the time, when he left, John Makovic, were still interested in giving me a scholarship, I jumped at the chance. It was a dream come true.
During your freshman year at U of I, you were a reserve O-lineman, and during your sophomore year was when you became a starting left tackle. Were you expecting to be a starter during your sophomore year?
No, actually, being honest, I was happy to be a role player. I was excited to be one of the 22 guys that got scholarships for that year. You got to remember, I'm a 17-year-old kid coming from high school, and you're playing alongside juniors and seniors. You're no longer the big guy on campus, like you were in high school. These are, seniors that are 21, 22 years old in some instances. So I was a little intimidated, But, I just finally got comfortable with things. I went to school as a tight end, Chris. Got a scholarship as a tight end, but guess what? Showing up to camp 40 pounds heavier than I was supposed to be kind of got me moved to offensive line, and that's pretty much what happened.
Well, when you got that scholarship to play tight end at U of I, and you come over at U of I 40 pounds overweight, what did the coaches say to you?
Yeah, the thing about it is, it was manageable for me because, I was blessed with some athleticism, and that's what I used. I didn't use my size. I think that they just saw, my ability to move my feet, and I played with some, a good core and had relatively good strength. They were able to, to kind of, transition me into being an offensive lineman, and as long as I keep my weight up, it would work. And that's kind of what I did. I wasn't like an overly big guy for a tackle, because, prototypically you like to see tackles around, 6'6", 6'7". I'm 6'5", and at the time the best thing I could do would be to keep weight on, but I managed it, and it was okay.
All right, Brad, let's fast forward to your senior year in college. You're named a team captain, and I got to ask you, what kind of honor is that to, be noticed, pretty much by your whole team, to know that you're a team captain? What kind of honor is that?
You know what, Chris? I mentor a lot of young football players, and they all have aspirations to be an all-conference, all-American. And, those are wonderful accolades. They're great individual accolades, if that's what you're looking for. But to be named a team captain, what that means is that the people you play alongside of, the coaches that coach you, they feel that you are up to the task. They're giving you the responsibility of being the leader of the thing that they hold, pretty much dear to their heart, and that is, the football team itself. So it's cool for the media and fans to say, yeah, you're an All-American, you're all-conference, great job. But when the people you play alongside of, when the people that are teaching you the game, they tap you on the shoulder and they say, hey, you're the captain. That's something completely different.
You completed 4 years of college and got your speech communications degree. While playing football, how important was it to get your education?
I mean, there's no guaranteed contracts in the NFL, Chris. You know that.
Yeah.
So with that being said, and understanding the averages of pro careers and how long they don't last, basically, you got to have a game plan, man. You got to have something to fall back on, and that's where a degree comes into play. It's also about relationships, though, too. As I've grown in age and whatnot, and started understanding more of the business world, you understand that making those the business relationships and strengthening those links, are the conduits to you having a lot of success. So it's great to have your degree that gets you in the door. It just shows that you've made a commitment and you're responsible enough to come up with a solid game plan. That's what a degree gets you. But then you got to have the mouthpiece. You got to have the tools, to open the doors that you're standing in front of. So that's where the relationships come into play.
With the 13th overall pick in the 1993 NFL Draft, the Houston Oilers select Brad Hopkins, left tackle out of Illinois. What was it like to hear your name get called up to in the NFL Draft?
I actually was standing in the front yard, talking with a friend of mine, and I kind of wanted to keep it, a little to myself if I could. But there were a few media members that were making their way to the house, and I just hear my dad. He just yelled out, "Houston!" And I didn't know what he was talking about, because Houston wasn't one of the teams that had expressed interest in me. As a matter of fact, I had no idea that they were even considering me. Which, by the fact that they ended up trading with the I think it was the Philadelphia Eagles at the time, to move in front of the team that they thought was going to pick me, kind of shows that I was on their radar. I had no idea. So when my dad was yelling Houston, I'm like, why are you talking about Houston? Well, I always said, Chris, that if I was going to be able to have an NFL career, I wanted either A, be close to my house, because I'm kind of a homebody, or B, go someplace warm. So Houston has a pretty temperate climate, and I was at least happy with that.
Were you surprised at all that you were drafted so early? Were teams actually looking at you early in the draft, or were you expected to be a later round pick?
No, I was right where people had projected me to go. I got picked third offensive lineman behind Willie Roaf and Lincoln Kennedy. Willie Roaf actually got inducted to the Hall of Fame. It's not this year, maybe last year. I think it was this season. But either way, in some pretty good company. As a matter of fact, Lincoln Kennedy went on to have a tremendous career with the Raiders. I actually came in with a pretty good group of linemen, if you will. We had a pretty good draft class, and I think that the projections were I was the third guy taken, and lo and behold, I was the third guy taken.
Yeah, and you went on to start 11 games that season at left tackle for the Houston Oilers. Again, this is a question I pretty much asked you earlier for U of I. Were you expecting to start at least 11 games during your rookie season?
Yeah, actually, your contract says that. How much money they put behind, how many zeros they put behind your name, that determines the expectancy. In other words, if I got, say $100,000 signing bonus, my average per year annual salary was say $250,000. There aren't really too many expectations for you coming in and starting at left tackle. But when they give you a signing bonus at 7 figures, and you're at least looking at a salary that's consistent with that, they know, you know that there's some expectations that they have of you. So not starting wasn't an option for me.
Right. Was there any veterans that would, make you guys, the rookie guys, get you guys to do anything just because you're rookies, like maybe give you guys funny-looking haircuts or carry the shoulder pads and helmets? Was there anything that the veterans did to, kind of embarrass or punish you guys?
Well, you just described a couple of them right there. Everyone got the old the barbershop treatment. That was the humbling experience in case you were some superstar and thought too much of yourself. Bring you down a peg. That's what happened to me. Also, standing up and singing your fight song in the middle of the dining hall, standing on a table. Know the words to your song, or if you don't, you'll get crucified. Those are some of the things that that you're asked to do. Maybe the cold tub treatment. You maybe look a little parched. You may need to be refreshed. And how about a little dunk in the cold tub for measure? It's just all within fun. Nothing harmful. Honestly, there's a lot of respect that goes on in the locker room because those guys that are first year players, well, guess what? Next year they're not. Yeah. And they do have a good memory. So, it will behoove you to be careful of the relationship that you do establish, and then not being too much of a jerk when it comes to the, I hate using the word hazing, Chris, Because in this instance, it's not. No one's getting beat with a paddle and, have to, do ridiculous things. These aren't football players with pride. So, but there are some things that you have to go through to establish, let's just say, a hierarchy in the locker room.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure of it. Brad, can you tell us what the change of playing in Houston and having the franchise move to Tennessee was like?
You know what? You're going from the fourth largest city in the country to the 37th, I do believe. That's the market here in Nashville. Night and day. But you know what? I'd say that the difference was the accepting culture that is here in Nashville. Nashville is a wonderful community, to raise families and whatnot. It's not necessarily a young players environment. It's not Houston or San Diego or San Fran where there's like, there's a culture of, I guess, I don't know, whatever you see on TV, whatever. And that's not the way here. It's kind of sleepy a little bit, Don't get me wrong. If you're looking for trouble, you can find it. But for the most part, it's a very comfortable upbringing, and I think that was one of the things that made moving up here to Nashville very receptive for the team, and they were excited once they actually built a stadium on the Cumberland River and actually able to get into it and play some games.
Well, in 1999, the Tennessee Titans had a really good team, which included yourself, Bruce Matthews, Eddie George, Steve McNair, Javon Curse. I mean, I could just go on and on. I mean, it was a pretty good team, and it showed by you guys getting to Super Bowl 34. Can you tell us how tough it was to get pretty much just to the Super Bowl?
Well, you know what? I have to say that it was the journey years before we would actually get to Atlanta. And what I mean by that is, leaving the city of Houston, going to Memphis for a season, basically being booed in a lot of instances because, fans in Memphis, they didn't know us any different than the Pittsburgh Steelers, which was very apparent. They're spending a year in Vanderbilt without having a home per se. The makeshift practice facilities that we went through, we had a lot of average seasons when we could have had terrible seasons because of just the volatility of our atmosphere. But you know what? We didn't. I think that what that did was it kind of drew us together, made us more of a family, and we approached the games as such. And we actually were able to get into a stadium that we call our home. The fan base was excited. That 12th man was really created there, and then everything else was contagious. So it was a great time to be in Nashville when we had our Super Bowl run because we were winning football games. People got to see the best talent in the NFL come into Nashville and get beat. What better way to start an NFL career or season?
What was so different about that particular Titans team that you played on compared to the others?
That's a good question. You know what? We had some news and noteworthies. Everybody knew who Steve McNair was, Eddie George. We had guys like the Javon Curse. But for the most part, we didn't have Tom Brady's. We didn't have Joe Montana's and guys like that. We were blue-collar workers. And I guess when you can get to the pinnacle, with above-average talent, not elite talent, that's the difference. We didn't have a Chris Johnson that, runs a sub-4 340, and can rattle off 2,000 yards, has the potential to do that. We didn't have that guy. Sure, Eddie George was a very, very complimentary back, and, obviously we used the heck out of him. But, those superstars, we didn't have them. And, frankly, we didn't need them, Chris. I think that's probably one of the biggest differences. Yeah,
unfortunately, you guys did come up short 23-16 against Kurt Warner and the St. Louis Rams. Brad, can you just tell us about the experience of playing in the biggest game of the year, the Super Bowl?
The way we departmentalized that was by saying it was no different than any other game. Now, I know that, halftime when it's normally, 15 minutes, now 1 hour and 16. No, I'm just kidding, it wasn't that long. It seemed like it. You know what? The approach was the same because you want to create that consistency. If you all of a sudden start thinking about this game being different than the ones you played in the past, then all of a sudden you're doing something different than you've ever done in the past, and that's not going to, systems are what win, you know what I mean? And sticking to those systems, I think they guarantee you, a better chance of succeeding. So to think of it any other way than it was just, the next game would have been silly for us, and we didn't.
Did you learn anything, just anything, by lining up by the now first ballot Hall of Famer and Bruce Matthews?
You know what? It started with Mike Munchak, Chris. Going back to him. That was my first Hall of Famer I played with. He was my left guard when I first got in the league. I played with him for a year before he hung up his cleats and took an assistant coaching job, which he was still my assistant offensive line coach. So he's always been there. And then, of course, what you talked about, Bruce Matthews. He and I played together for 10 years. He developed a form of communication and a relationship, a bond that is unique to a lot of industries, man. I mean, this guy, we bled together, we sweat together, we've been through the fray together, and that's the kind of bond that you really appreciate even to this day. Shoot, I just got in golfing with him at a tournament for Special Olympics that he and Mike Munchak sponsored just this past weekend in Houston. Those are the kind of relationships that they stick with you throughout the rest of your life, and that's how much I can show you, or at least tell you, the influence that both of those gentlemen had on my career.
That's awesome. And Brad, if you don't mind me asking, what was your relationship like with the late, great Steve McNair?
The best, man. That was my cat right there, dude. I think that Steve, what he showed you is that you don't always have to be aloof when you're successful. You don't always have to be disconnected. There's no guarantee that you're going to all of a sudden put yourself on a pedestal and be unreachable by those that cheer you on. Steve McNair, man, was a regular dude. He was a guy that would give you the shirt off his back. I mean, if you asked him, he would literally do it. And help you change the tire to boot. That's just the kind of guy he was. He never was pretentious. He always, in most situations, greeted you with a smile. And he was a competitor, unbelievable competitor. There's too many glowing things that I can say about that guy. But, it's just tragic the way life, kind of enters into things. No matter how, big your star is or how bright it shines, you're never out of touch of reality, man. It shows in so many different careers that happen. You got guys that, just maximize their potential, and they're like, still to this day making names for themselves. And then you hear the tragic stories, like the ones that are featured on, 30 for 30 episodes on ESPN. There's all kinds of stories that happen in the NFL, man. And his was just one of the more tragic ones. Yeah, it was. And we actually have a question through Twitter from a pretty nice Twitter handle, Fatboy1030. He said, what is your favorite memory of number 9, Steve McNair? You know what? We were, I'm going to say it was the Giants up in the Meadowlands. And we were down some scores. I can't get too specific in detail. No, I'm not on the concussion lawsuit, but sometimes I have a hard time with that. Yeah. Well, just to kind of finish up that conversation before I interrupt just by losing signal. Steve walks into the huddle, and everyone's got these wide-eyed looks, like, what are we going to do? There's no way in the world we're going to be able to accomplish this, getting down the field and scoring a touchdown to win a game. And the first thing he did was walk into the huddle, and he laughed, and he just smiled, like, what's up with all the long faces? Like, what's wrong with you guys? Knowing that this is a completely pressured situation, the way he approached that, it made everybody in the huddle laugh. It loosened up the moment. And from that point, we just, with a relaxed approach, put together a drive that we were able to get into the end zone and win the game. See, that was the uniqueness about Steve. He didn't just buy into the pressure of, oh my gosh, I've got to do something that's just almost unbelievable, and then let the pressure or let the moment be bigger than him. He diffused it. You know what I'm saying? He licked his fingertips, stuck around the match in and said, you know what, I'm good. We're good. We're not going to have this be a part of what's going to stop us from winning this ballgame, and it didn't. That was a tremendous moment. I'll always remember that.
And I gotta think that's something every player wishes, they could do. I mean, not every player could, some can, but I'm sure every player wishes they could do something like that.
But you know what? I would assume that it was the confidence that we, his teammates, gave him. We believed in Steve McNair. And when you have people, the backing of the people that are closest to you, especially in the football world, shoot, anything's accomplishable. Chris, this guy knew he had the confidence of the world because why? Because we gave that to him. It's the same guys. You know what? That's what makes Tim Tebow special. It's not necessarily Tim Tebow's ability. Sure, he's a tremendous competitor, but it's the people it's the lives that he affects and how they play for him and with him. You notice that it might not be Tim Tebow's accurate passes that complete the reception. It's the tremendous catch the receiver made to put himself in a position to catch it. It's the holding onto the block just a second longer because you care about this guy having a great game. It's little things like that when you have great relationships with your teammates, the sky's the limit, man.
Yeah, you got that right. And Brad, going back to your career, you were selected to 2 NFL Pro Bowls in 2000 and 2003. What does it mean, not only by your players, your teammates, but the coaches, the players, the fans? What does it mean to be recognized by them and be voted to the NFL Pro Bowl?
you know, those are the individual accolades are always something you think about in the back of your mind, you know, because at the end of the day, you really have no effect on who makes those decisions. And it's such a, I guess you could say, there's so many components that come into that. It's almost unbelievable that everything comes together in almost lightning in a bottle for a situation like that to happen. In my case, I never thought about being, you know, an all-pro or a pro bowler. I just thought about, you know, playing some years in the league until the league basically was done with me. But I think that, you know, as I started, you know, having more respect for the game and respect for the players that have played it and seeing what their accomplishments have been, you know, it's hard for you not to be a part of that and be mentioned amongst those same great players. So it was a tremendous honor. I'll always, you know, hold those things dear to my heart. For the most part, man, I just enjoyed hanging out with the guys.
And on June 14th, 2006, that's the day Brad Hopkins announced his retirement. After 13 seasons of playing in the NFL, how did you know you're ready to retire from the game, Brad?
You know, Chris, I really kind of left that up to my family. And what I mean by that is, you know, my kids now are, you know, 13, 14, and 15. And when I started, you know, to make the decision to leave the game, I think I put them, not like I didn't put them first, you know, when I was making the decision initially, but, you know, realizing that there's going to come more times where I need to be there to coach and to do homework and, you know, to kind of, you know, to mentor. And I couldn't do that, you know, states away. It would have been difficult. You know, my kids are in school. They're getting to that age where, you know, there's a lot more responsibility, and I wanted to be around to help, help with their decision making and things like that. I just felt that, you know, extending my career after 13 years, I would have been doing my family a disservice. So it was just best that, you know, I'd stick around here in a community that I love being in. Nashville was a phenomenal place, and I'm just happy to be a part of the community.
Hey, sounds good to me. Brad, I have just a few quick, fun questions for you, then I'll let you go. Does that sound all right?
Absolutely. Let's go.
All right, Brad, what's your favorite TV show and movie?
My favorite TV show is Law and Order, and you can take your pick. SVU, Criminal Intent. I love, you know, just the whole process of watching crime scene investigation and top it off with some good judicial drama. I love Law and Order. And probably my favorite movie, I love to laugh. So, you know, I like movies like Knocked Up. I like Kids. I like those off-the-cuff kind of, you know, borderline cheesy movies. I love those kind of movies. So I like those movies, old school, those kind of movies.
All right, you're an offensive lineman, so I know you like to eat. I mean, you went to U of I, 40 pounds overweight, man. What's your favorite thing to eat?
Oh, my gosh. Well, obviously 40 pounds overweight, it can't be just one thing, now can it?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you know what? My mother used to make this dish. It was a pork chop dish with mushroom sauce. And that's, you know, oh, my gosh. I can sit down and eat a whole pan of that. But if I had to grab something quick, you know, and, you know, it's consistent like what I usually do when I'm hungry, I'm a pizza guy, you know, meat lovers all day long. Yeah, you can't go wrong with any type of meat. So, throw me a good pizza and you got a friend for life.
If you could meet any famous person, who would that be?
Any famous person, who would that be? Steve Harvey.
All right, you're on. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I say Steve Harvey because he's in a position I want to be in someday. You know, I want to be a host. I want to be able to conversate with guys like yourself, talk about my experience and talk about yours, you know, be entertaining, talk about world events. Because I think what happens is, you know, people that you see in the news, they get pigeonholed. Pigeonholed into the things that you know them, you know, most for doing. But there's so many different layers of most people. You know, it's hard to think that they're only good at just one thing, you know. And I think Steve Harvey's a good representation of that. He's got a radio show in the morning. He's hosting Family Feud. You know, he's doing a whole bunch of stuff. And that's kind of what I want to see myself doing.
Oh, that's awesome. I see you're on Twitter at B_Hop72. Why do you make it important to connect with your fans? Because as we know, if it wasn't for the power of Twitter, I wouldn't have you on the show right now, Brad.
Well, for the same reason that I'm doing this interview, is because I want people to know that, you know what, it doesn't matter if you play 13 years in the NFL, You've gone to a couple Pro Bowls, been an all-pro, all-rookie team, Super Bowl. It doesn't matter. You're still a dude. You're still a regular person.
Yep.
You know, we put our pants on just like everybody else. And for anybody to think better of themselves than that just because of their accomplishments, you know what? That's wrong. And, you know, I just want to, I like to be able to, in a regular conversation, tell people, I'm no different than you. I go to McDonald's. You know what I mean? It's not always Ruth Chris and craziness. That's not what, you know, being someone that's in the limelight's all about. You can still be in the limelight, be a humble person, and have people have an affection for you that's genuine. And that's what I'm about.
Hey, that sounds great. That sounds great. And last but not least, what is something about Mr. Brad Hopkins that many people do not know?
I've probably owned every four-wheel vehicle on the planet, and that's no joke. I have a serious affection for the vehicle, foreign, domestic, antique, late model, you name it, I love it. Whether it's a truck, you know, convertible, it doesn't matter. I've been that way since I was a kid, and that's probably my passion. If it wasn't football or basketball or some sort of athletic competition, you put me behind the wheel of anything, buddy. I'm snug as a bug in a rug.
That's awesome. Brad, you're now on Sports Radio, the game on 102.5 in Nashville. How do you like the radio business?
Love it. It allows me to stay connected. I get to talk about sports. I get to, you know, have conversation with some of the game's great coaches and players. I'm truly blessed, man. I mean, at any point in time, I could be talking to Tim Hasselbeck from ESPN and then top it off with a conversation from, I don't know, John Gruden. It doesn't matter. That's how my day goes, and I just love having that ability. So radio's been great for me. I look forward to, you know, actually growing this business.
Yeah, I'm a senior in high school right now, Brad, and once I graduate, I'll be attending Columbia College Chicago. Is there any advice that you would give anybody who wants to, you know, have a future in radio or sports like myself?
Do the research. The reason why I say that is because you have to be able to validate what you say. It's easy nowadays, Chris, in the world of social media, just to kind of, you know, cut and paste what somebody else said. But I truly, you know, what's being said. You know, nowadays, you know, to have credibility, you've got to be able to stand by the words that you say. And in doing that, you've got to do the research and make sure that what you're saying is factual, or at least as close to factual as possible. If you don't have all the facts, give the credit to who you got the information from. You know what I'm saying? Rather than try to take it for yourself. I'm not saying you never do that, but we see a lot of people in this industry fall into that pitfall.
Oh, yeah, many people do that. I always try to give credit when credit's due. Brad, I really appreciate your time tonight, man. It was great to have you on the show. Before I let you go, is there anything you'd like to plug on the air for myself and our listeners?
You know what, Chris? I think that at this point in your career, you being a senior in high school, you've already taken the steps to show your responsibility. You've conducted a tremendously smooth interview. It's been polished, in my opinion. You've asked great questions and good follow-ups. You know what? If this doesn't lead to something for you, I'll be surprised. So, you know, best of luck to you.
I appreciate it, Brad. I appreciate it. Take care, and hopefully I could have you on during the football season and talk some Tennessee Titans.
Yes, bless me.
All right, sounds good. Take care.
Take care.